You are now rocking with that dude Pascal. We be going wild, Haitian in the building, so original. Got the haters catching feelings. Get your hands up to the ceiling and keep them held high. Cause St. Louis isn't ready. Forget about it, goodbye. Hold up, we just saying hi. Five somebody, rise up. Weekdays, catch us live. Somebody, let's go.
Good morning. Good afternoon and good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Pascal Show. Hope you guys are all doing well out there. Hopefully this show finds you in good spirits as always. All right. We got a quick conversation, a quick topic, but it's a story that we need to talk about. This one really aggravates me on many levels. And let me explain why. Because we've been hearing stories like this over and over and over and over again over the past couple months. You notice that there was a big surge recently on these types of incidents. Now we got another one. But this one I find very interesting because they're trying to throw something into the mix. And I don't think I agree with it in 110%. But of course, I want to be able to bring to you guys the conversation, bring to you guys the information that we know so far, and of course, bring in a good friend of ours, former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, to the show to talk to us about this and what we should expect. Are these claims fair or not? We're going to be talking about that in just a minute, all right? But before we get into everything, you know how it is, okay? Some housekeeping. I know all the boring stuff, but let's get it out the way real quick. Hit that like button down below, all right? Please crush it. Make it scream out your doggone name. Don't forget to do that. And if you haven't done this yet, I don't know what to tell y'all. You're missing out on the best party on these sides of these YouTube streets. So be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button wherever you are watching this show right here. And of course, if you want to support the channel, by all means, hit that join button or go and support me on Patreon. I'm really starting to thicken that page up and that platform up a lot. So please go over to Patreon, join, support the channel if you can. That'd be greatly appreciated, okay? Anyway, let's get into these things, okay? Now, there's a reason why I'm bringing up this conversation, guys. All right? There's a very, very big reason. And one of the main reasons is because I see an immense amount of innocence here. I see an immense amount of love coming from one specific angle, okay? And protection, let's just say that too, of one's child or of one's children. And let me say this really quick. Ajike Owens is her name. She is a mother of 4. She also goes by AJ, all right? Now, apparently they're saying that there was an ongoing feud with her neighbor for years. But in this particular situation, her kids were outside playing on a grassy field in between apartment complexes when suddenly the neighbor that allegedly she has this ongoing feud with comes out of her home and basically starts hurling racial slurs at these children, basically telling them to get off her lawn, okay? Gran Torino, get off my lawn, all right? Now, these kids get shooed away. They go back home. But her young son forgot his iPad. Now, what's interesting is that this neighbor took the iPad from the kid, okay, whilst hurling these slurs. So, of course, the kid goes back trying to retrieve this iPad. The neighbor comes out, throws the iPad directly at the young boy, hitting the young boy. It falls and it cracks the screen of the iPad. Now, the mother, understandably, AJ, gets up, walks over to the neighbor, knocks on the door. Apparently, there is a fight or like a confrontation that happens between them. And this mother of 4 gets hit, gets shot through the door by this neighbor. At least 2 of AJ's kids saw this incident, and this young mother passed away. Now, that's a very, very broad stroke explanation of what's gone down so far. There has been, obviously, there have been press conferences, etc., trying to bring awareness and trying to get justice for Ajike. But what's very interesting about this situation is that the family or the neighbor is trying to claim stand your ground within this whole situation. Regardless of this being a feud that's gone on for years, or if this was just one confrontation, I don't know. And like I said, I'm just a guy telling stories, right? But when I see something like this, bullet holes going out through from the inside of a house outside, hitting a woman that may have been just pounding on the door, may have just been yelling through the door, God knows what. To me, this doesn't scream stand your ground. But again, let me repeat that again. I'm just a guy. And this is the reason why I wanted to bring on our good friend, former FBI agent, Jennifer Coffin-Daffer, to the show. Thank you so much, Jennifer, for being here. I really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I always love being on your show. I always love your guest comments and questions. So thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So now that I kind of gave a very, very broad stroke of this situation, and of course, there's a lot more, but a lot of other things that are kind of percolating as this story continues to grow. When we look at this situation, you have an alleged feud that's been going on for years. They say about 2 years. There's been this neighborhood feud going on between these 2 women. How could this, with this situation that's gone down, how can this constitute as stand your ground?
Well, let me just talk a little bit about stand your ground, not
Please.
having seen the facts on both sides. I think you did a great job representing the facts. We know them on the side of the deceased, her family. I want to first say that my condolences and heartfelt, just sorrow goes out to that family for what they're suffering, because certainly this was unexpected. Certainly these things should never end this way. So let me first say that. Secondly, I have, of course, not seen the facts, the case file. I have not seen or heard from the other side. Having said that, I can address stand your ground, particularly in Florida, and this did take place in Ocala, Florida. So stand your ground is very liberal in Florida. And basically, if somebody comes and is threatening and is on your parcel, in your curtilage, coming at your door, it's been very liberally interpreted. I want to give you a quick example of that, Pascal. This was a case that just happened. It was just adjudicated. And imagine this, an individual was in a movie theater. Another individual was in a movie theater. They were seated behind one another. The person in the front of the other person was on their phone texting as the previews were going. So the guy in the back says, "Hey, we're in a movie theater. Quit texting. That light's coming up. You're distracting me." Long story short, the guy behind goes to get the manager. He's so mad about this guy texting. The guy in front of him gets up. They get into a verbal confrontation. The guy in front of him takes popcorn and hurls it at the guy behind him. The guy behind him takes out his gun, shoots and kills the guy who hurled the popcorn. It's in Florida. They argued, stand your ground. Pascal, the shooter, got completely off. Completely.
I do remember that story.
You remember that case?
Oh, absolutely. And I was absolutely shocked that that individual was able to walk scot-free because of popcorn. And if I remember correctly, the person that was actually the shooter was an elderly man, if I'm correct, right?
He was elderly, but he was former SWAT. He was former law enforcement many years before. So law enforcement, I just don't want anybody to think that had any play or any role. He wasn't hooked up in the, he'd been retired for years.
Right.
He was elderly. And he argued that because he's older, and this 40-year-old, I think, was around the age that he feared for his life, and that he thought he was going to get pummeled and basically beat to death. So that was his stand, and that's why he explained he could shoot. So in this case, I don't know what's going to be alleged, but is the woman who shot, I don't even know her name, is she going to allege that she was in fear for her life, that words were said like, I'm going to kill you when I come in, I don't know what they're going to allege, but I just wanted your audience to see the liberalness of this policy, of the stand your ground.
Absolutely. And one thing I do want to say as well is that the shooter, has been identified, and I do want to show you guys that person's face as well, just to make sure you guys all see this. Her name is Susan Lawrence, I guess. Lawrence. I'm mispronouncing it, of course, but she's an older woman. She obviously was a neighbor of AJ. And as you can see to the far right, that is of your screen, that is AJ, of course, another photo of AJ. All right. But this is the woman that actually shot through her door, taking the life of AJ, or Ajike Owens. Okay. Now, and of course, there's, I don't know. I guess that is the question of what was going on, what was being said. Was there any type of threats that were made by by the person who took the life of AJ? But one thing I do want to share with you guys is some more information, that they said that was basically saying a little bit more information about what's going on. Okay, so just to reiterate a few things. All right, I guess Diaz is the mother. Okay, Diaz is AJ's mother, just so you guys know that. All right. So she says the neighbor that took the life of her daughter had a history with Owen's kids, harassed the children in the neighborhood, harassed AJ, her children, her babies, and called them racial slurs like the N-word and slaves. Moving on, she says, we know that this has basically been a neighborhood feud over time. This is what Woods has said. I've got reports that these things, they've called one side or the other. Either the mother, Miss Owens, has called, or the shooter has called complaining about the children. Both Owens' family and the sheriff say the neighbor threw a pair of skates on Friday that hit one of Owens' children. Her mother says Owens went and knocked on the door. So not only was it an iPad that was thrown, but now there's new information about a pair of skates that were actually thrown at the kids the moments before AJ lost her life. They also say it was a closed, locked door. Door never opened. My daughter and my grandchildren's mother was shot and unalived with her 9-year-old son standing right next to her. She had no weapon. She posed no imminent threat to anyone. Okay? So that piece of information to me, and I know that you just said, Jennifer, that that in Florida, it's very, very loose with the phrase stand your ground. But when I hear something like, okay, this person, the person who actually pulled the trigger, actually was already violent towards the children to begin with. She's behind her closed door. You have a person on the other side of the door that's obviously, understandably upset because of the treatment that she gave towards her children. How could stand your ground work in this particular situation when she doesn't even know who else is on the other side of that door? You see what I'm saying? The person who's pulling the trigger doesn't even know who's on the other side of that door. You're just shooting blindly in the dark, basically. Thank God her 9-year-old son didn't get hit with any of those, with that bullet, that it was higher than maybe it. You see what I'm saying? It just doesn't make any sense that how stand your ground can even have any merit in this particular situation.
Well, Pascal, certainly they're going to take a look at other cases that mirror this kind of a case. And I believe they will be out there. In other words, cases where other individuals were in their house and shot through their doors, resulting in death or serious bodily injury. And they're going to take a look at those facts and circumstances to see if there is true precedent where, how was that case adjudicated? Was that individual jailed for manslaughter, for second-degree murder, for murder? Did stand your ground prove to be, useful from their position and they got off the hook? That's what they're going to be looking at, Pascal, from a legal vantage. So, interestingly, I will definitely later in the week take a look at other cases that were similar because it's going to come into play, past cases.
Absolutely, because I mean, because you think there's been other stories like this. There was a young boy that was pulled up to the wrong house to pick up his brother, knocked on the door. Next thing you know, he gets shot in the head. Thankfully, the young man is still alive, but he just knocked on the wrong door, and you have an 80-year-old, son of a gun, holding a gun, pulling a trigger through a closed door as well, shooting him multiple times, not just once. And of course, there is still they're still trying to throw that stand your ground law into this situation. And I keep thinking, to me, it's the closed door. To me, it is the closed door that speaks volumes. To me, this shows to me that, and I'm just showing the photo again, because obviously, as you guys can see, this photo here, it just really does not show like there was any sign of forced entry of any type. It doesn't give off any type of vibe of this woman was in dire straits, and therefore we need to make sure that we put out this whole thought, this whole notion of the stand your ground argument. The door was closed. It's not like it's not like this woman who was using an axe trying to get through the door, a crowbar, anything. It is someone knocking on the door, angry because of someone mistreating their children. So I guess in my mind, this isn't a popcorn, even though that story was even as wild, just wild. But in my mind, I go, so you're telling me the thought of this woman, Susan, is scared for her life. Therefore, she could possibly have legal rights, or she could possibly walk away with this within her legal rights because of stand your ground. I still am having a hard time wrapping my mind around that. It is just a strange and wild piece of information.
The law is certainly very much on the side of not only being able to protect yourself, but your property, basically being able to keep people off your property that you might perceive pose a threat. Can I just take a quick turn here, though, Pascal, with a case that really bothers me that is kind of similar from the standpoint of stand your ground was fought. It was in Florida and it was denied. And that is the case of Mr. Rudolph, the NFL player, played for Florida State, played in the NFL. He had 4 people come to his house, assault, battery, 4-on-1, 4-on-2, 3-on-1. I mean, a huge melee broke out. And by account, a gun was drawn by one of the 4 that, talk about stand your ground, that came to his house, was on his property, beating the crap out of him, he and his brother. And then ultimately, it goes down the street a little ways. The brother is down there getting beat, and he goes down there. As they go away, again, the testimony is from one side that they had guns pointed out the window, and so Mr. Rudolph shot, hit one, just grazed him, but hit another one and fatally, killed him. I mean, I don't know. For me, that is a stand your ground situation, but I guess because it poured out into the street, they're saying no. But Pascal, the law and how it's interpreted is definitely interpreted case by case, and that's a case that has me a little bit bothered, to say the least, as you can tell.
Yeah, and we do know that is one right now. Just for example, that is one that is they're in trial right now. I know a lot of people are pouring in and checking out his testimony right now as we speak. In fact, I'm trying to pull up a photo of him really quick, so we just have that, since we are in that conversation real quick. But yes, this is another, as you just this is a great segue into that conversation. It is a situation that's happening right now, and it is in regards to the circumstances and the issues that were brought up, that falls along the lines of stand your ground, right? I mean, given the fact that he was there, he's got a girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, I don't remember exactly, but sending text messages to her people, basically saying, shoot his ish up. They show up to the place with some pieces on them. There's an altercation. He's obviously suited and booted as well. But obviously, chaos ensues, and and then casualties happen, right? And since we are on that topic, I'm curious, where do you stand on this? I mean, obviously he's still taking the stand, I think, right now. I mean, they should already be 50 minutes or so into the trial today already. But what are your thoughts on this right now, this trial itself?
Well, I've always said this case is going to come down to the believability of Mr. Rudolph. And I've watched about 2 hours of his testimony. And he's extremely believable. He's calm, cool, and collected. He says things that don't even necessarily help his case. He says that he loved the woman, that her good outweighs the bad. He actually comes off as just telling the truth. And I believe he does tell the truth. And if you believe him, I don't know how a jury is going to determine that he is guilty. That's the bottom line there. Does the jury believe him? I can tell you, I believe him. I really do. So that's what it's going to come down to. I predict a hung jury, possibly. He might be acquitted, Pascal. He just might.
You know, I'm actually leaning on the side of that being a possibility, because I don't think that he, I mean, just on this topic alone, I don't think that he went in here, or, you know, I don't think he was thinking that he was about to do, like, that this was about to happen that day. I don't think that he had any plans of anything of what transpired to transpire. I think he was a person trying to protect himself for sure. It's unfortunate what happened in the situation, you know, with the outcome. But at the same time, I can see where stand your ground works when it comes to that type of situation. It's, I don't even know how many guys, but it was what, 4 against 1
It
or
was
something like
4
that?
against, they were actually after Mr. Rudolph, but his brother answered the door and was also home. The mother was home. Things were a terrible brawl, a beating. But when one individual who was the brother of the ex-girlfriend, and he doesn't even describe her as a girlfriend, but certainly somebody that he was cohorting with. By the way, she was married and never let him know. I could go on and on. But he
It's
brandished
all
his
bad.
gun. Mr. Rudolph runs back inside. He doesn't have a gun on him. He runs back inside. He had a gun positioned on the couch, and it was a semi-automatic rifle, which is another reason that this ended very badly. And he came out, and then there's no shooting that takes place. Where the shooting takes place is a little bit later, when his brother is still getting pummeled, 2-on-1 at that point. And, you know, the question is, why did he feel the need to shoot at the vehicle? And the point is, if you believe him, and I believed him, they were pointing guns out of the window. There's also police work that was, I would call it incompetent, and that's going to figure in terms of really investigating those guys. Were they armed? Did they throw their weapons? All of that was just shoddily done. And he was arrested very quickly for a homicide.
And it's interesting because you mentioned about law enforcement and their lack of due diligence. Obviously, there are some clips being shared all over the place of one particular officer basically trying to defend themselves for not really going through the work, doing the investigative work. And it is kind of crazy where they just almost walked in with a bias. They just said, okay, he did this and it is what it is. And we don't need this is an open and shut case. We don't need to do much work. We don't need to do any investigative work. Let's just let it be what it is. He was the guy. He got a gun. He did what he did. But as we're starting to hear more information, it's extremely scandalous and extremely shocking when we hear things like they were most likely shooting as they were driving away. You know, that there was still
right. They brandished a firearm and then
right.
he shot it. And he's not trained, Pascal. I mean, he's sitting there and, you know, scared for his life, the life of his brother, if you're to believe him. In other words, were they going to round the corner and come back and shoot them up? Were they going to fire right then? So he shoots, and he shoots many bullets. It's not just 1 or 2. And I think that's really also came into play. But you have to consider really the level of training, you know, an individual never being in an incident like that. As he well says, his father was murdered in a terrible situation also that I think weighed on his mind. That's why he got the guns in the first place. You know, that's why they had all these cameras there. His mother was afraid. So there's a lot of factors and nuances. And I just think to convict somebody and put them in prison for, you know, years under these circumstances, I don't know, Pascal. I'm having some trouble with it.
It's a tough one. I mean, especially with that one being, well, and you know, you also got to remember, I mean, one was shot in the back. You know, there's some other details in there that are not great, and I get it. It's not like he's sitting there, ex-military or, former FBI or, somebody who has experience with weapons. But I guess that's my whole argument about weapons in general. Why have them? If you don't know how to use them, why have them, but that's another conversation in itself. Because obviously with somebody like Travis, for example, it is very tough to try to sit here, and I can see the other side of the fence. That's all I'm trying to say, where it's hard for anyone to sit here and try to empathize, or sympathize with this individual when he has a very powerful weapon in his grasp, in his possession, and he takes it out. And if he has no proper training of it, just starts spraying. And next thing you know, people die from that. That is a huge problem. That is a huge issue to have. And I can see why on the other side of everything, where I can see why the prosecution could be pushing because of that as well.
Right. But recall, Pascal, one of the fellas who died was just at his doorstep pounding the crap out of he and his brother, saying, "This is Demon Day. You're going to die today." And there's a lot of expletives and horrible things that were said. But keeping it PG here, they said they were going to kill him that day. Right. And they called it, I think, Demon Day. In other words, let the demons out. Who cares what happened? You're going to die. And I think so. Yes, was he spraying and praying? Yes, was he scared? Yes, was his whole tactics, could be definitely called into question? Yes, was it further away from his house? They had ran down the street. He went down because his brother was further down the street. Should his brother have gone down the street and maybe pursued? No, but that's what put him in that position. I'm not trying to say I don't see the other side. I just I believe this guy. It really falls on that. And if the jurors, even one of them, believe him, I think we'll see a hung jury. And could they all believe him? Possible.
I mean, I think that the general, from what I'm reading off of the court of public opinion, it is coming off like he has really he's been bamboozled. He's been set up. That these guys had full on intent on doing something bad. And it was all from a text message from a girl that I guess he was in I don't even know what to call it. Okay. That he was friendly with, for lack of a better term. But I guess not the best term, because she sent a text message to people being like, shoot his ish up. And then, of course, in her testimony, she's like, oh, well, yeah, shoot his things up. Like, come on, you clearly wanted him gone. You wouldn't text your people that type of stuff if you didn't have intent to actually really see this person get erased from this planet. I got a super chat here. Let me grab that really quick. Madeline, thank you so much for the 5. And this goes back to our original conversation. But why was a child present in the first place? Why do these adults keep bringing their kids along to confrontations? Now, one thing I will say, good question. I will say that. But I do think that someone who innocently thinks that they're going to be able to come up and maybe she was trying to find out what actually happened. I mean, of course, this is just speculation and just theory. Maybe she was trying to bring the son up to maybe get a formal apology from this shooter, from this person who pulled the trigger. Maybe she was trying to get her to be like, you apologize to my son type of situation. Or it may have been another thing of, this is how you handle racist people. You're coming with me, son, so that you know how to be strong here and how to hold your ground, not stand your ground, but hold your ground when it comes to situations of adversity. So come here. You're coming with me. You're going to get this in an apology, and you're going to see how you get it done properly. That could have been it too. I don't know why that that poor son was there in the first place. But at the same time, I feel like it was maybe for her to teach her son something. But what are your thoughts on that, Jennifer?
Well, and before, and I know I'm on a bit of a time crunch here,
Yes.
but I want to leave, and I think this is a good segue from what your follower and listener, the point that they made, and that is, we are not in a normal day and age where you can have a road rage incident, both pull off and say your piece about being cut off while you slammed on your brakes and roll on. Or you could be in a line at a grocery store and you push and shove each other and that's how it ends. Or you can be mad at a neighbor for bad treatment and go over and say something. We are so past that because so many people are armed. So many people have no self-control. And you are just, I'm not victim blaming here at all. I say it to my husband, like when he gets mad at somebody cutting him off, I'm like, honey, let's just roll on. Or I have a 20-year-old son. I'm like, dude, I don't care what happens, wherever you're out at, just turn your back and run. I don't care if they spilled a drink on you or they said something mean, just roll. We are at a day and age right now, Pascal, and maybe everybody kind of knows this, but I'm just going to reiterate it. People come out and kill people over nothing, over nothing. And so I just hope it could all stop. And we just have to be more tolerant, turn our backs, take that Christian road and leave these fools that say terrible things to their own plight, because life isn't going to go well for them.
No, it's not. It definitely isn't. One more before you have to head out. I know you got a time crunch here, but Haunted Doll, thank you so much for the 10. Florida state laws that in order for Stand Your Ground to be applicable as a defense, you must not be engaged in unlawful activity. She assaulted someone else's child. A-ing a child, I got to use these code words, is unlawful. Stand Your Ground defense is null. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that with the facts we know right now, I think she makes a absolutely terrific point. But I will say we have heard one side. What is going to be the other side? Is the other side going to say, she threw something at my house, or she made threats, she was trespassing, she broke my mailbox. I mean, we have not heard the other side. And so your listeners always bring up great points. That's a great point, but we've only seen half of the pancake, I always say. And the two sides of a pancake are always completely different. So we got on one side of the pancake. That is true, but let's see the other first.
Yeah. It's frustrating because this leaves room for this woman, the person who actually pulled the trigger, to fabricate whatever she wants, unless there are cameras, street cameras, etc., ring cams, whatever, showing the actual altercation fully in 4K, as the kids say nowadays, in full 4K. That's what I'm wondering, and that's what I'm really concerned about, because obviously she could lie. She could literally lie. I mean, and it's just as simple as that popcorn, like that you beautifully said earlier about the popcorn incident in the movie theater. Totally forgot about that story. Wild turn of events. But at the same time, he felt like he was threatened. He was scared for his life because of popcorn. So, and given the fact that it's very loose with the Stand Your Ground situation, I could see something like that working out in the person who pulled the trigger's favor, which is very frustrating and sad. So I'm hoping that we do have some sort of camera footage somewhere showing proof positive of what went down, so that there is no fabrication of the incidents that led up to the shooting to begin with. But Jennifer Coffindaffer, I really do appreciate you coming on. I know you got a busy day, miles to go before you sleep. So again, thank you for being here and gracing us with your intelligence. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, and thanks to your audience as always.
Okay. Well, I will be talking to you very soon. All right. You
That's
stay
great.
blessed.
You too.
Bye. Shout out to Jennifer Coffin-Daffer for coming on and talking to us about all this. And of course, I did appreciate her segueing into the Travis Rudolph situation, the ex-NFL player that is on trial right now as we speak. I've been thinking about jumping into it and doing some watch party over that actual trial, because let's be real, it is a big story, and there's a lot of people that are talking about it and just kind of going into depth with it as well. But I wanted to give you guys that story and give you guys some information about Ajike, or AJ Owens, because that young woman, that mother of four, deserves justice just as anybody else. I don't agree with the shooting through a door, and I never will. I never will. I just don't see, especially in this circumstance, not never will, but in this circumstance, I don't agree with it because of the situation that transpired before all of this. There was an immense amount of aggression going towards the kids to begin with. Then the mother goes over there. To me, clearly, the assailant knew exactly the wrong that she had done. So she was ready for it. She was ready for, maybe she thought that there was going to be a full-on vicious altercation between the mother and herself. But at the same time, she still pulled the trigger through a closed door, not a glass door. She couldn't see nothing. So that's the part that is frustrating to me. Berenice Rivas, thank you so much for the 5. Hallelujah, Mrs. Coffin-Dapper. Yeah, she's fantastic, guys. I really do appreciate her coming on and being a part of the conversation. So for me, I don't entirely agree with the argument of stand your ground. I just don't. There's something about it that just ain't mathing right to me. To me, this is someone trying to find a lame excuse and trying to get themselves out scot-free. Oh, and I hate it. Of course, we hear this all the time. I was scared for my life. I hate that phrase. And I feel like that's just about to come out this woman's mouth. Again, let me show you guys. All right. For those of y'all who are late to the party, just showing up and all that, this young mother of 4 lost her life because of this woman right here. Okay. Her name is Susan. The assailant's name is Susan Lorenz. I guess Lorenz. She fatally took the life of AJ Owens, all because her kids were playing in the yard that she claims is her own. Now there have been other claims of this woman taking things from AJ's kids, even throwing a pair of roller skates at these kids, throwing an iPad at one of the kids, breaking his iPad. And I don't know about you, but any parent, I feel, would go and confront the person that's doing those things, especially if you have allegedly a year or a few years long feud with them to begin with. Let's keep it real. This woman got scared for some weird reason and pulled the trigger through a closed door, taking the life of AJ. And of course, her 9-year-old son was standing right next to her as she was fatally shot. Again, stand your ground, in my personal opinion, in this situation does not work for me. Math is not mathing. But now I'm asking you guys, okay, please let me know, or let people know about AJ Owens' story. It's not really getting out there as much as it should be, that's what I believe. I believe this is a story and a topic that needs to be brought out, because let's be real, this could happen to any of us. Doesn't matter the race, doesn't matter your background, doesn't matter if you're short or tall. Remember, we live in a crazy time right now. And for any reason, someone could be pulling out a heater and start pulling that trigger. for whatever reason. But when we are looking at a situation like this, where we are parents trying to protect our kids, when a person does wrongdoing to your child and you go up and try to confront the situation, you shouldn't be losing your life over that. No one should be pulling the trigger through a door with your child right next to you. That is reckless. That is absolutely reckless. And I don't stand for that. So this stand your ground BS is absolutely what I just said is BS in my personal opinion. But of course, it's all up to the law and what her lawyers say. But I'm hoping that this woman, this monster that did this unthinkable thing, gets the justice that she rightfully deserves, because it is long overdue. Anyway, guys, that is the show. I appreciate you guys for being on here. I know I told you it was going to be a short one, though. All right? I told you guys it was going to be a short one, but I am on the fence. I've been thinking about watching the testimony of Travis Rudolph, but I kind of wanted to give you guys like a breakdown, an update, etc. about the story, because I know a lot of us don't know the full story of what happened and why he's in trial to begin with. So that's something I'm thinking about. Okay, I don't know if you guys want me to do that. Please press the number 1 right now. Before you guys leave and all that, press the number 1. Let me know, because like I said, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. But there's so many other stories. Like I said, I got an annoying ass yellow book, notebook filled with notes of stories that I want to cover with you guys. Literally pages and pages of stuff. And we got other trials coming up here soon as well that I want to bring up to you guys as well and all that. So anyway, I will be back on most likely in a couple hours. I'm going to see what's up with this Travis Rudolph situation. And I might do that. I might. Okay. But again, there are stories to talk about and things we need to bring awareness to. So before we get going, please hit that like button down below. Hit it, hit it, hit it. Please share this feed if you can. And of course, send this one past 300 likes. That would really mean a lot before you leave. And if you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button. Hit it. Crush it. Make a scream out your doggone name. That'd be really appreciated. Okay. So anyway, guys, I got to get going, but I will see you guys very, very soon. All right. And again, thank you so much for the super chats and for the mods. Thank you guys for always holding it down. Anyway, it's time to get going. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And I'll see you guys in the next show. This is the Pascal Show. Bye.